I was 13 when my brother Billy disappeared. He was 10. We were supposed to look out for each other, right? But something went wrong that day. Billy went for a walk by himself and didn't come back. Not for lunch, not for dinner, never. Of course, I was questioned. The whole family was questioned. Statistically, 80% of crimes against children are committed within the family. When a child goes missing, the first people they check are the parents and next of kin. But I had nothing to tell the police. I didn't see who took Billy. I couldn't do anything to help. No one ever blamed me for what happened. I was only 13 and I wasn't even there. But if I had been with Billy that day, maybe that man, whoever he was, wouldn't have reached out to us. If he wanted both of us, the two boys, for sale or some perverted business I don't want to think about, he would have swooped in and taken the two of us, right? But he only took Billy. So he's almost certainly the type who doesn't track down victims specifically, but drives around looking for the right vulnerable kid. Disorganized criminals, the kind that act spontaneously. Then, if Billy and I had been out for a walk that day, we would have been fine. Why did we even think someone had taken Billy? That was the official theory eventually put forward by the police after days of searching, questioning, and analyzing witness statements. A strange van had been seen in our neighborhood, and in it was a white male in his early 40s with a mustache and a baseball cap. You see where this is going, right? Pretty much the poster child for abductor pedophiles. Nobody got his license plate. But I think there was a sketch. Useless, of course. There are millions of these white guys in their 40s with mustaches, which, by the way, can be shaved off in a minute, and wearing an ugly baseball cap around the country. Missing Billy Sanders. 10 years old, 3 feet 10 inches tall, skinny, wearing a blue t-shirt, white gym shorts, and white sneakers. He had a mole under his left eye and a translucent Transformers tattoo on his arm. Maybe with a white male approximately 40 years old traveling in a white van. Anyone with any information, please God, I memorized that by heart. We got a ransom call, of course. 3 times, 3 different people, none of whom had any idea where Billy was, came forward. The cops explained to us that it's common for a child to go missing. Phones ring off the hook with half-crazy eyewitnesses and scammers hoping to sell information they don't have for a couple thousand. Billy was never found, but it had to be said, the parents never gave up hope. This man has him. He's been taken by force. Bad things are probably being done to him. We never said which ones. But he's alive, and he'll come back one day. Something will happen. This freak will die, get hit, get caught by the cops, get hit by a car, or just hesitate. And Billy will have an opportunity to escape. He'll break free and come back to us. One day. I know my parents never stopped believing that. To them, Billy was alive, just not with them. We didn't do cenotaphs, empty graves like the ones they build for guys who died in Iraq and whose bodies can't be brought home for one reason or another. Memorials or other grieving gatherings. Usually, in such cases, parents don't touch the missing child's room, but not mine. Billy's room was renovated every couple of years. New things were bought, like new toys for growing up. He's growing up, and he'll need new things when he comes back. Mom and Dad waited and hoped. They refused to accept even the idea that Billy was gone forever. As for me, I shut down even more. I didn't think I was a particularly cheerful child before all this, But after my brother's disappearance, I was practically a recluse. My parents weren't too worried about it. On the contrary, who would want to lose another child? After school, I would go straight home and spend most of my time in my room. I hardly had any friends. I wasn't very social before, but after the story with Billy, even my high school buddies drifted away from me. When something like this happens to someone you just don't know how to act around them. The easiest and best thing to do is just walk away. Don't touch him. Suddenly, he is traumatized, worried, and doesn't want to talk to anyone right now, much less have fun. Is it any wonder that school hasn't really been going well since that day and I never got into college? Even though everyone told me I was capable, I probably could have gotten in if I'd tried harder, but I wasn't interested in much else. After I turned 18, I stayed at my parents' house. Although I have to say, I don't have a particularly close relationship with them anymore either. No, they never blamed me for what happened, but they couldn't forgive me for being the only one in our family to accept and come to terms with the fact that Billy wasn't coming back, that he was gone. Billy came back 6 years after he disappeared. He'd been picked up in some brothel in Pasadena, either with a stolen credit card or a forged check. I didn't really get into the details, The important thing is that at the police station, Angel, the name he'd been using for the last few years, suddenly gave his supposedly real name, Billy Sanders. He gave the day and year of his abduction, described his family, and described his abductor. It really was the guy in the van. He offered Billy a ride home, and he accepted. I immediately said my brother wasn't that stupid, but who was listening to me at that point? That man, Harry, was really doing bad things to Angel, that is, to Billy. My mother sobbed as she read the transcript of the interrogation. I had seen worse things in criminal records. Angel got off easy. Harry was a heavy drinker, and at 15, Angel was practically out of his control. Running away, prostitution, petty theft, and drugs. He'd come back to Daddy, as he called Harry, when the going got tough. Angel said he remembered his real family, but he thought it was too late to come back to us, that we wouldn't accept him as he was, that there was too much that couldn't be undone, and so on. But a few weeks ago, Harry drowned in the bathtub. Drunk, of course. Angel pulled him out and even tried CPR, but eventually realized it was useless. So he didn't call for help. He collected all his cash and went wherever the hell he was going. His eyes were looking in a familiar direction, the point, the brothel, and the police station. I had to admit, Angel did look like my brother, even the mole under his left eye. And he did know some details. Except that among this information, there was nothing that could not be read from newspapers, from the internet, or seen in a report on TV. Some of it he was just able to guess about. I've always been more into Team X. It's just that I got the Transformers insert, he told me over breakfast, when I tried to discreetly test him with a tricky question. The Transformers sticker had been on the missing persons report, and it was logical to assume that they were Billy's favorites. But Angel hadn't fallen for my trick, and what's more, he'd gotten it right. Billy really was an X-Team fan. For a second, I was confused, with a chill running down my spine. But then I remembered that one of Billy's pictures, which were stacked in every room in the house, showed my brother wearing a Wolverine t-shirt. Mom and Dad believed the foundling at once, and rejoiced at each successfully passing test. You bet, because Billy was remembering his home and his old life. After a couple of weeks, even I began to think that Billy had never disappeared, and that he had always lived with us. My parents weren't just happy, they seemed peaceful. Angel fit in well with our family. He was sweet and seemed non-threatening. When I was around him, I almost forgot that he was gay and not my brother. Angel sensed that I did not believe him, and always tried to act especially natural and friendly in my presence. One day, I asked him if he held a grudge against me for what had happened. "Don't be silly, Big M," he replied. He must have overheard that address from his parents. Between us, Billy and I always used nicknames. It's not your fault. In fact, it's nobody's fault but that creep, Harry, and myself. I shouldn't have gotten in the van with him. "I'm your big brother, little B," I replied. "I'm supposed to be looking out for you." My eyes suddenly watered, and I felt like I was about to cry. For the first time in 6 years, my brother put his arm around me. "It's not your fault, Em. Nothing." When the police, having finished verifying Angel's story, urged my parents to take a DNA test to conclusively establish or disprove parentage, my mother was outraged. I understood her feelings. After all, she had convinced herself that her son was alive and at home. A test could ruin everything and take Billy away from her again. My father didn't dare insist. Later, however, after weighing it and thinking it over, they decided to find out the truth. That is, for the mother to confirm that Billy is Billy and everything is fine. In order not to traumatize him further, the father came up with the idea of taking the sample surreptitiously, without announcing his doubts and mistrust aloud. After all, if it is Billy, which we have little doubt it is, imagine the pain he'll feel when he finds out we don't truly recognize him. Of course, Angel knew all about the test. I'd seen him tampering with the samples at night. Of course, I'd figured it all out, even when he picked up my mug to take to the kitchen the day before. He needed my DNA. I could have exposed him then or shown him I knew the truth, but I didn't. Everything was fine. Billy's room wasn't empty anymore, and my mom was smiling, you know. It was 2 months before something went wrong for the first time. I was ready for something like this. Now that the DNA test confirmed his parentage and therefore his legend, Angel felt safe and relaxed. I don't think he really wanted to upset my mom. We can't forget that he was raised on the street and was an alcoholic pedophile. It's unlikely Angel was trained to watch what flew off his tongue. He just said what he said, and it made my mother cry. I wasn't going to let that go. This kid is here to please my parents, not upset them. I pulled my brother to the bathroom between our bedrooms, so my parents wouldn't hear us. My brother wouldn't say that to our mother, I told him sternly. You are no longer in a brothel, but in a decent home. You need to watch your manners and behavior. He snorted and tried to step around me. You're only 3 years older than me, Big M. Don't imagine you're going to be my dad. Just because you didn't keep track of me 6 years ago doesn't mean you can start now. I know who you are, I said, looking him straight in the eye. And I'm not going to let you upset my parents. That's not why you're here. Remember that. He turned pale, but he didn't give himself away. A cocky smile played across his face. And what are you going to do to me, Big M? I'm your brother, and this house is as much mine as it is yours. You think you can kick me out that easily? Angel threw off my arm that was blocking his way out of the bathroom and headed for the door. But before he could grab the handle, I yanked him back on top of me and pinned him against the tiled wall. Even though Angel had been raised God knows where, he wasn't used to defending himself by force, so he chickened out. "Let go!" he shrieked and struggled helplessly, and I kept my hand on his throat, not squeezing but sensitive enough. I could have easily strangled him if I'd wanted to, or, alternatively, if I'd lost control of myself. But instead, all I did was tell him, "Behave yourself, little bee, or I'll do to you what I did to my real brother."